For this kind of a bottle, you need to have a chuck because the base is so narrow, so it's very easy to tip over. So you need to have a chuck. Just find the chuck that is wide enough for you to go in. Okay, so this is good. Right, first you center your chuck. Okay, and then put it on. And if you watch my chuck here, you see the color is a little bit different from most of the chuck, because what did I do? I soaked the chuck in the water. I put it in there for like 20 minutes. So the reason I'm doing that is that when the chuck is soaking in the water, it's not going to absorb the water, the holding clay, the water from your holding clay, so it's easy for your clay to stick on the surface. Okay, so that's the idea of soaking your chuck in the water. Because most of the studio, they fire their chuck, which is very porous. So if you try to use the holding clay, it's going to draw water from your holding clay, and you find out that it's a lot easier to fall off from holding it. So I soak it in the water. If you're not sure how the Hsin-Chuen does, you could just use a needle to check it. See that this part here is still a little bit off, so you could kind of move it. And just keep on checking again until you can draw the whole circle around. There's still one side without the mark. Okay, just keep on doing trial and error, so you will be able to get the clay in the center. So I'm just going to center it. Right, and make sure that you secure your piece. Actually, before you trim, if you are throwing up the hum, it's very important you check the thickness of your bottle before you trim, because when you throw up the hum, it's very important. This part here, you don't want to leave it too thick. If you leave it too thick, you are going to end up with getting S-crack. Okay, especially true for porcelain. So to prevent that from happening, you want to trim this part here, the center part, okay? A little bit thinner. I would say less than 3 millimeters, okay? Less than 3 millimeters. So to be able to do that, if you don't know how to knock it, better to check it before you go, right? So you check, measure here, let's see here. 134, okay, not 135, not quite 135. And then you take out and then measure outside. Oops. $155. So it's like 20 millimeters. That's how much clay there. 20 millimeters is very thick, right? So you had an idea. So let's say this is 20 millimeters. So I want to leave this part within 3 millimeters. So how deep I can go? 17, right? Okay. 17. That's a lot, right? Because I told you that when you color up the hump, you want to leave this part thicker. You can remove a lot easier by trimming it, but if you don't leave enough clay there, you might end up with cutting a hole there, right? So. $20 millimeters. So I would estimate this is about like 15 millimeters. Since I know how thick the bottom is, so I'm not afraid of taking it deep. Right. So if you're afraid of cutting it through, check it. Right now it's 10. So I have 7 to go, right? So good. So thick, huh? It's not like me. I usually draw thin, right?
You just get down to all of
See that how thick it can go, right? If you don't measure it, you don't know, right? You're gonna end up with a lot of clay there, okay? So measure it again, okay? Now it's about 13. So I have 4 more to go. So this is a very good way if you're gonna throw something with a very tall foot, right? So you could get a very tall foot ball. So you know how far you can go. All right, so let's double check it again. Triple check. Right, so now it's 16. 1. Okay, 1 more to go. Right, I will stop right there, and then that's how much clay you can remove from the outside part, right? So you compare the inside corner and outside corner. So you can take down the clay all the way to at least the same level. Since the inside is like curved, so actually the outside could be lower than the inside corner. And if you want to change the shape, you can do a little bit. Because my shape is kind of a little curved, right? But if I want to have an angle now, I can do that. Because I have lots of clay, I can still do a little bit design on the shape, change the shape. So that's how much clay I have. And now if you don't want to have a tall foot, just cut it, right? So now you for the shoulder. Yeah, it's hard to control to the right softness or dryness when you are using the public studio. A lot of people share in the studio. I wouldn't usually I wouldn't trim my clay this soft, a little bit too soft. That's why I keep on using the looping tool when the clay is soft. Looping tool is easier for taking care of the softer clay. Right, so that's the button, the foot trimming. Make sure you measure it right if you throw up the hump. It's very important. Otherwise, you might get an ass crack. Okay. And you see the clay is holding very nicely on the wet chalk. See that? I changed the shape. Was curved, right? Now it is a little bit angle. Show you how to take care of the spout. I would wait till a little bit stronger. Turn it upside down and trim a little bit here. Okay, but now it's too wet for my clay to hold it there. I might messed up the bottom. Okay, so I don't want to do that. But the spout is very important. That's what I show you when you pour out. You don't want to have a drip, right? So that's the lips here that is doing the magic. So when you are cutting it, I usually get a knife, a very sharp knife there, right? So cut a little lip, right? And then just shape up clay there.
Nice.
See that? So when you pour, you see that there's a little lip there, right? So it's the water is coming or liquid from here. It's harder for the clay to clamp back up.
Right.
So it just stuck there. So it's not dripping on the side of the bottle or the teapots. Okay. So that's how you do it. Okay. So first, get a very sharp knife and then just do a little, don't cut it too much, okay? Just do a little cut in there, right? A little cut in there. And then I just remove a little bit, tiny little bit clay there. So it's like this part here. You see that most of the plastic container, they have a little hanging, right? Something like that. So when you pour water out, the water is not coming all the way to the side of the plastic. They usually always have this kind of a design. The same thing, you have a design like that. When you pour out, you're gonna cup the water from there. Okay, so that's you wanna stop the water or liquid from dripping on the side of it. You do that, okay? You do that, and then you just clean it up, and it's very nice having this kind of a spout when you pour out. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. All right, so I'm going to trim 2 cups. Usually that diameter is the same, but the height is different. You can see that it's same height, same diameter, but different height. So I usually choose the shorter one, trim the shorter one first, and then use that as a guide to trim my next one, so they will be the same height. Okay, so that's the tip for you. You're gonna make a set of things. Trim the shorter one first. And I'm just using the water to stick the cup on the wheel. If you want to do this method, you better to learn how to tap centering. Okay, tap centering, because if you don't do tap centering, when you put it on, and then after you try to move around, the water is going to stick your cup. It's very hard for you to move around. So tap centering is the method is easier for you to just use water to stick your pot on the wheel head. Okay? So if you want to learn tap centering, you can watch my video. Okay? I have several videos showing how to do that, how to practice too. Right? Once you tap center, you find your center. All you need to do is apply a little bit pressure on your pot is from the wheel head. Okay? And again, the clay is still a little bit wet, so I'm using the looping tool for most of the trimming. And as you can see, I usually place my left thumb to the tip of the tool to stabilize it. And the left hand is slightly holding on the side of it. So if you don't know how much clay you could remove, usually you want to measure it or check it before you trim. Otherwise, you might cut a hole by accident or leave the base too thick. And for me, I usually just by knocking the bottom and hear the sound. When it's thinner, the vibration is more frequent, so the pitch sounds higher. But you have to experience it. Maybe cut a few pieces. You think it's perfect. If you not try to learn this method, sacrifice several pieces. After you think it's perfect thickness, you memorize the sound, right? And then you cut it open and see if that's right. Okay. Sacrifice several pieces, and you have the skill, and later on you don't need to depend on anything, just depending on hearing the sound. Also, for using the water to stick on the wheel head, the advantage of it is that you could trim all the way to the rim, right, without clay in the way of the corner. So to be able to stick your piece on the wheel head, and you can see that when I'm trimming, I usually don't use a bat. The bat is made out of wood, and the clay is not going to stick on the wooden bat. It's going to stick on the metal wheel head. Right, on the looping tool, I won't be able to cut the very detail, so I will usually turn it into my L-shaped tool to do the final cutting. A little cup with a little bit chattering. To remove from the wheel head when you are using the water, it's just hold it tight and then kind of twist it. And you can remove it and clean up the edge later on. Okay, so that's the cup. So I'm going to use this cup to guide it. See that? This one is a little high, so when I'm trimming, I will put it back and try to see if they are the same height. The diameter is the same, right? Last week, remember when we did the drawing, we already measured the inside depth and the width. So inside depth and width the same. Outside is adjustable. That's why I told you it's important when you want to make a set of repeated things, the depth and the width. The first thing when you throw up the hump, the first thing you want to do is try to level the foot. And when you're leveling the foot, usually you don't want to put the tool right on top of it. You want to either cut it from the outer part or from the inner part at the lower point and try to cut it level. If you put the tool right on top of the unevenness, your tool should go with the wave. So sometimes you could never get it to level. Okay, so cut it from the lower point and then take your tool level and maybe spin the wheel a little bit faster, okay, when you try to level it. So now I want to measure the size of the foot. So we just bring it back here. Okay, still a little bit wide, so I will cut. Make sure that is the same height. I am squeezing a little mark there, so that's where I am going to level it. Okay, so that I could still need to remove more clay from there. Alright, so let's double check to see if it's on the same height. Still a little bit more. So try to make the whole set of repeat things very tedious. It's a lot of measurement. It's almost there, and let's double check the width again. Okay, so still a little bit. Right, so that's the two cups of the same height, same width, same foot size. Okay, so that's how you measure it. You get the shorter one, trim it first as a sample, and then you measure it. So you could get a nicer set of repeated things. Okay, two pieces. On the rim, I will just clean it up later. Just use sponge to wipe it, and the rim will be nice and smooth.